Welcome into Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins.
And I'm John Merrill. And we're excited to have you join us again this week for another episode of Brainstorming America. Ken, let's tell them what we've got on the agenda this time.
And that's John Merrill. Hey, I jumped the gun on you, buddy. This week I want to talk about some subjects that are in the news that we want to go a little bit more in depth and iron them out so people can understand them. I can't get it from this mainstream media. They don't go into depth. So the first thing I want to start with is the hot subject of males and female sports. I was watching it before I came out here today. It's a girl riding bicycles had been the champion forever. And I don't know where this was, but she had been the champion forever. And a guy comes in and beats her. His first time. He had never won in anything. But because she went through the different structures in the male body, she's well known to she knew her subject, that what the male body can do that the female body can't. And so she resigned. She gave up the sport. She said, there's no way I can compete with any male. And so this is going to have all these little fellers is coming up through the ranks, thinking they're going to get to play basketball or on their equals. Not going to do it unless we do something.
Absolutely. And you know, it's such a tragic thing, Ken, when you're thinking about what has actually occurred over the last 50 years on this particular issue. Title IX was something that was long overdue. There were many instances of occurrence where people that were attempting to introduce sports for boys and girls, especially in high school, let alone in college, were not able to do so because they were not going to be funded at the local level. I know this firsthand because my mother was a physical education teacher at Cleveland County High School, and we did not have girls' sports. The only sports that we had were track and field and volleyball. Later, they introduced softball and basketball, but the thing that my mother was required to do was to teach and coach these sports, but she was not given a supplement. The guys that coached football, basketball, baseball, track, all had supplements. They were given additional income for their time, energy, and resources that they invested in this particular project. But there were a number of people around our country who realized that this was not right, and so slowly but surely changes were made. Birch Bayh, who was an 18-year United States Senator from the state of Indiana, one of the greatest statesmen in the history of the Republic. Actually, Ken, he's one of the only person in the history of the Republic to pass 2 constitutional amendments to the U.S. Constitution that was not a founding father. But Birch Bayh wrote Title IX and had it implemented in the 1970s, started female sports. So for the last 50 years, we've had championship level sports in the NCAA and in high school ranks all across the union. And because there are some people who are woke who can't understand that if you're born as a man, then you're a man. If you're born as a woman, you're a woman. They think that men can have surgeries or they can actually have just a change of mind about how they identify, and then at that point they can compete in female sports as a guy who identifies as a woman. Well, I may say tomorrow that I identify as an astronaut, but NASA's not going to allow me to command a space capsule or space module. That's not going to happen. I may say tomorrow that I identify as a physician, but I'm not going to perform surgery on anybody that's got any ability to make an appropriate decision. I think it's important for us to step up, tell our federal legislators, our members of Congress and our United States senators, the time for this discussion has long since passed. We need to put it behind us. It's time for us to move forward. It's time to go back to logical, reasonable, common sense thinking and say it's time for us to put that aside and to let men play with men sports, women play with women's sports, because that's the way that it's intended to be, because that makes it fair for all concerned.
Can you imagine Coach Saban having to take a female football player, being forced to because of a law. And think this is the kind of stuff that we're facing. I mean, this is. I picked up on something that girl said, that males have a much more ability with the heart and the lungs to participate. They got more strength from that than the girls. I did not know that. But she said as far as swimming, they're able to hold their breath longer. And for racing, she said while she's racing, she holds her breath for that big jump
Sure.
she's going to do. And so she said the heart and lung is real important. And males have you out beaten from the get-go.
Well, Ken, look, if we were talking about competition in basketball, for example, you take a 6-foot woman and allow a 6-foot woman to play basketball, she's going to be very competitive and she's going to do a really good job rebounding, playing defense, keeping people from getting to the basket. A 6-foot tall man, if he can play at an elite level, is not going to be playing on the block. He's not going to be playing in the paint. He has to play outside. But when you put the two of them against each other competing, a man can be much more physical than a woman and can put a woman in a difficult position to be competitive. That's something that we have to understand where we are today.
Yeah, well, it would get stuff that years ago we never thought about it ever happening, but it's happening today, and the only way we're going to stop it is people like us, our viewers, people that pick up the torch and really stop it.
Yeah, it's time to put the nonsense aside, and it's time to make sure that we do what's right when it comes to Title IX and women's athletics. Welcome back to this week's episode of Brainstorming America. Let's continue the discussion on the topics of interest to you. Ken?
Well, I had a note, I got me some notes here, and I had a note for the second time is on the green thing with the farmers. And I don't think we left anything off that, except I saw you've seen this fella 1,000 times in your life, overalls pulled down to here, and he was, he had been feeding, and he had some skull right here, and he was salt of America, and he was tears in his eyes. He had cows surrounding him. When he was pointing, he wasn't pointing to them. He was touching them on the back, like he knew each one of them. And he was talking about when you take these and you take this, he showed them fields. He said, when you take this, you take that, you've taken America. And I thought about that. And you know, he really did. When we can't eat, he furnishing the food. That was a big thing, but
Well, unfortunately, Ken, there are a number of people today who have the same idea as Stacey Abrams does about how we act if we run out of food. She just simply says, let's just go to the grocery store and get some more food.
Yeah.
Not having any kind of understanding about how the food gets from the farm to the marketplace. Because it has to be grown in an environment, whether it's controlled or whether it's organic, and then it has to be harvested, then it has to be taken to the market, it has to be processed, and then it goes to the store for us to buy and take home and consume. But to think that you can just go to the grocery store and get some more food because we might run out of food, whether it be animals, cows, pigs, chickens, whatever it happens to be, seafood harvested from the ocean. Let's be serious about what we're dealing with, and let's address the topic the way that it needs to be addressed. And let's let the market speak for itself as we attempt to move this conversation forward.
They don't grow rutabagas down at Winn-Dixie?
Wherever they grow rutabagas, they can keep them.
Oh, boy. I see I hit something. The spinach and asparagus.
Now, I love spinach and asparagus, but you said rutabagas, Coach.
That's like that girl on the TV, that one of them programs that they have question things and the answer. And they said, the question is, what was Popeye's favorite food? She said, chicken. Popeye's chicken. All right, let's go to something that we're in Alabama. but maybe the show's going out further, but Second Amendment thing. Red flag laws came up yesterday. Michigan the governor signed a red flag law. I think that's about 4 or 5 states now that have them. I don't know where Alabama stands in it, but I want to touch on something personal. If you, that I know of, a woman had a bipolar, she had threats on her life, threats on her husband's life, and a child. She went into mental institution here, and then when she was released, she bought a weapon. And she told people she bought that weapon to kill her husband. Told a lot of people in the community. And this is local, so I know about it. And then later on, she went back to the mental institution. More time, and she was released again. And when she got out, she bought another gun, upgrade. During those times while she was in the mental institution, she bought 2 pistols, all with the intent of harming others. But that psychiatrist, doctors, whatever you want to call them, cannot notify. They've got a thing in CIC that they can place out there where don't do this, don't do that, and the police pull it up and see that maybe you're wanted for this, or
Yes, sir.
and they won't sell them a gun. But you can't do that with somebody for HIPAA laws. And
Yes, sir.
So, what's your thoughts on that? Because we're always going to have people, and a doctor's not going to ever sign a paper saying Ms. Jones is okay.
No, because at that
own
point,
the
they
weapon.
become liable too.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure we go back and revisit the HIPAA laws, because those requirements that were in effect when the laws were originally passed, even though they may not have changed, many of the things that we do each and every day related to mental health issues have changed. And unless we are allowing our law enforcement professionals to interact with our physicians and our other mental health professionals to ensure that these individuals in question are being properly checked out, are being properly identified, and that we know exactly where they are in their daily lives as far as stability is concerned, it's putting the entire community at risk. We'll have another situation like we had with Uvalde, Texas, and a situation where a school shooting occurred. All of those things that have happened could have been prohibited if people actually knew what was going on in that person's head. And somebody did know. In most instances, a mental health professional or a physician knew but could not share that information because it was not allowed by law. Let's go back and revisit that and give it the attention it deserves.
Yeah, the sheriff, you remember Larry Emerson, he had asked me to write an article about that and put it in the Anderson Star. I said, well, you get nowhere. You get nowhere by doing that. I mean, all you're doing is saying, yeah, they've got a problem, and there it is. You need some way to fix it.
Yes, sir.
And you're just talking about that, but I'm a doctor. I'm not going to sign my name
That's right.
saying Bubba's okay.
That's right. And that's the reason why we're relying on you to contact your legislators and your federal officials to get it done. We'll see you right back in just a minute.
And welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here, and we're talking, John Merrill has got over here, and I want to throw something at you, John, before you get too far into it. Yesterday, I saw that a new drug had been put on the streets by the same people that are putting the fentanyl out there. And I guess this is with the assistance of China, but they were coming from the same location. And it's called carfentanil. Carfentanil. C-A-R-F-E-N-T-A-N-I-L. And it's targeted for the youth. And it's used for, in Asia, it's used as a tranquilizer for elephants. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Want to kill an elephant. So you put it in some pill, and target our children. That was yesterday in the national media.
Yes, sir.
So we're allowing that to keep coming across that border. And the reason I'm telling that medicine or that poison is coming across the same way the fentanyl is through Mexico, from China. Now, if I'm China and I want to kill America, what better way? Look what they've done. Look how many kids they've killed already.
Absolutely.
This is scary.
It is very scary, and it's one of those things that we have to continue to be diligent about fighting each and every day, because if we're not diligent about it, if we take one breath to just take a step back and try to see what course of action we need to take, it puts us even farther behind the fight. So we have to make sure that we're fully committed to providing a safe, secure environment for our young people, continue to educate them and make sure that they know the only type of medicines, drugs that you should take are those that are prescribed by a physician. And that's the only time that you should take them. Now, obviously, if someone is ill and they have over-the-counter medication that could be recommended by a pharmacist, prescribed by your mom, that's a different situation. But we're talking about things that are life-threatening and things that, if not given the proper and appropriate attention, will result in death.
You know that, I think about back in my school days, I can remember a girl would be the person in the class. Somebody needed a St. Joseph aspirin or an Anacin, remember those? She always had something like that.
Yes, sir.
But I'm talking about harmless things. Now, imagine that same situation. They're telling, oh, we got tests coming up. I've got a Xanax. I got a Xanax to help with the anxiety. It's not a Xanax. Parents need to understand and make sure that they brief those children to never, ever take any kind of a pill of any sort from someone at school, no matter how bad. Call me, I'll bring you one. But don't allow those kids, make sure your kids understand how dangerous it is that somewhere in Alabama, a kid could be being handed a tranquilizer that would kill an elephant, and they think it's something, get them through a test. And that's happening out there today as we speak.
No doubt about it.
How do you feel on school choice? We never talked.
We haven't talked about
That's a
that
big
on the
deal
show,
right now.
Ken, and I think it's important to recognize that families have a choice in how they want to educate their children at their home. If they want to do it in a homeschool environment, then they can do that. If they want to do it in a private, parochial, independent, or homeschool setting, they can do that. If they want to send their children to the public schools, they can certainly do that. But that is a parental choice. But I also think that there's certain elements that have to be met regardless of what kind of environment a child is educated in. I think it's easy to remember just a few years ago, those families that chose the homeschool path were not recognized as being leaders in their community. Whereas today, some of our most prominent and our most well-to-do citizens actually have gone the homeschool route. But the thing that you have to understand is when you choose to go a certain path, there are certain things that you're actually making sacrifices for. If you choose to go the public school path, then you're actually going to say that it's okay with us that our children are all together every day for 8 hours, that they're learning in a similar environment to those that are like them, that have been tested to be like them in that environment. In a private parochial environment, independent school setting, those individuals are also receiving education that's been prescribed for that particular school, that particular way. And in a homeschool environment, you're only as strong as the teacher that is providing the instruction. Now, another thing that you didn't ask me about, Kim, but something that really concerned me is what we referred to as the Tim Tebow law. And certain people have said, well, if my child is participating in a homeschool instruction, then they ought to be able to participate in athletic competitions. And one of the things that I told people when they came and talked to me about that when I was in Montgomery was, I'm never going to support this. And they said, why? Don't you think it's that person's choice? I said, of course it's their choice. They made the choice. They made the choice to ensure that they were going to provide a homeschool environment for their child. And because of that, they have to have some sacrifices. Now, they asked me, do you not feel that it's fair that if they wanted to participate in athletics, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, gymnastics, whatever is offered at that particular school, that they should be able to participate? And I said no. And they said, well, why? Well, the biggest reason is this. If you play basketball on a Tuesday night and you have to drive an hour and a half from your house to go from your house or your school to compete, and then you don't get home till after midnight, then the next morning, those students that are at the school have to be at the school ready for practice that day. And if not, then they're disciplined. Your child, who was a homeschool child, who had the same experience, when they got home, they went home, and then you got ready to wake them up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready for school, homeschool, and they simply said, I don't feel right today. I'm too tired. The game was too rough. You let them sleep in until 9 or 10 o'clock. How's that fair? There is no fairness to that. So there are things that need to be considered. There are choices that need to be made. There's a way to do these things and to do them appropriately. But I think it's also interesting when people want to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I say all those folks that, all that money we got left over, that we got over shelved off to the side from the pandemic or the COVID, all that money would be a good thing to give to the folks that say, I can't afford to send my kid to a private school.
That's right. And we'll talk more about this and other things when we return.